Yo, what's up, y'all? It's JD. I'm a 40-year-old hybrid athlete and personal trainer. I use calisthenics, running, and weightlifting as my primary modalities of training. And today I'm going to take you guys along with me through one of my home workouts. This workout is for what I like to call strength and capacity. So I'm using some dumbbells for some isolated strength, and I'm also using the gymnastics rings for some capacity work. And what I mean by capacity, a little bit of volume and focused in on the basics, which is going to be some ring pull-ups, some ring dips, and some ring push-ups. This first exercise that you see me doing is called a Zanetti press. And essentially what I'm doing here is I'm running through 5 sets and I'm increasing the weight on every set. So I've started off with 20 pounds, then I go to 25 pounds. Then since I don't have 30-pound dumbbells at home, I went straight to 35-pound dumbbells to see what I could get there. And then I finished off with a set of 10 with 25-pound dumbbells. But I also wanted to chop it up with you guys and talk about something I've been thinking about when it comes down to training in your 40s and honestly just training calisthenics in general, and something that, even some of the younger guys who watch this channel can take notes of. And that is, there's no virtue in being a heavyweight. And this can go for calisthenics. There's a category of calisthenics called heavyweight calisthenics. I probably say it's, anything past like 185 pounds. And it could also go for just having that bigger equals better mentality when it comes down to your physique or strength, or the heavier that you can lift equals better. Now, while it is very impressive to see a bigger body moving through space, like for instance, you can think of a sport like basketball. I think one of the things that makes people marvel about LeBron James, or at least when he was younger, was how agile he was, how fast he was, how he moved through space, and kind of how he moved more like a little man than he did like a big man. Even though his body is that of a big man, people don't think about it, but LeBron is, believe he's about like 6'10" and probably 250, 260 pounds. And, throughout his career, especially in the earlier part of his career, LeBron moved more like somebody who was about 6'4", 210 pounds. So the same thing goes for something like calisthenics. When you think of gymnastics and you think of calisthenics, you're typically, the guys who you see on your YouTube feed or your Instagram reels or maybe even your TikTok reels, a lot of these guys who you see doing a lot of these impressive movements are, 5'5" to 5'8", 130 pounds to 165 pounds. And when you start going up in weight to about 200 pounds or, maybe 185 pounds, and maybe you're 5'10" to 6'2", calisthenics and, gymnastics becomes substantially harder. Now, we all can't control our genetics. Some of us are tall, some of us are short, some of us are broad, some of us are narrow. But what we can control is optimizing our genetics and optimizing our physique. It's funny because I'm 6 feet tall and I'm about 195 pounds, which is a pretty good size human. That's probably I would say, relatively average size person. But when it comes down to calisthenics, I'm very tall and I'm very big for the sport, if you want to call it a sport. I tend to look at calisthenics more as a training style. Now, gymnastics is an actual sport because they have kind of like sanctioned competitions. It's a sport that's in the Olympics. There's clear rules of engagement when it comes down to the sport. And when it comes down to something like gymnastics, I'd be a gargantuan giant. You know what I mean? Gymnastics, people are even shorter than they are when it comes down to what you think about when you think about calisthenics athletes. But like I said, we have control over how we optimize our physique. As somebody who's 6 feet tall and as somebody who has a relatively bigger frame, what I can do is I can try to keep my weight down. Now, Granted, when it comes down to strength training in other areas, I do consider myself a hybrid athlete more than I consider myself just a calisthenics athlete. Sometimes you're going to be training in ways that is going to make you gain weight. And I'm going to get into that momentarily. The exercise that you guys see me doing right here, I like to call this a dumbbell reverse muscle up. One of the skills that I'm training for at the moment is a reverse muscle up, and this dumbbell exercise mimics the reverse muscle up. So basically what I did with this exercise is I did 3 sets, 10 reps, and I start off with a 25-pound to warm up, and then I went to the 35-pound dumbbells for the last 2 sets of 10. But like I was saying, some movements, when it comes down to being a hybrid athlete, are going to contradict each other. I spent probably, I would say the good part of 2025, I think maybe the entire year, working purely on getting stronger. And a lot of the strength movements during that strength phase were things like weighted dips, weighted pull-ups, front squats, cleans, etc. A lot of heavy compound movements. Now, I did gain a substantial amount of strength. I gained a substantial amount of muscle mass. But along with that strength and along with that muscle mass, I put on about 15 to 20 pounds. If I can remember correctly, when I started off that strength phase, I was anywhere from 185 pounds to 190 pounds. And when I finished that strength phase late in 2025, beginning of 2026, I was 205 pounds. That's the heaviest that I clocked in at. And I might have had some periods where I was a little bit heavier than that. I wasn't doing too much kind of checking the scales during that time. I was more so just thinking about, okay, I'm going to get this training in. This is the program. I'm going to stick to the script. Another thing is that during that strength phase, I cut back on my cardio substantially. I also had a foot injury, which kind of prevented me from running. But even before that foot injury, I intentionally cut back on my cardio because I didn't want my cardio to interfere with my strength gains. It's funny, some people can get so obsessed with strength that they kind of lose vision and lose sight of seeing the forest through the trees. There's a YouTuber who I, follow their content almost religiously. I watch pretty much every single video. I really like the way this guy trains. But he made a statement on one of his recent videos about strength and about calisthenics specifically, where he was talking about how, you really shouldn't be paying attention to lightweight calisthenics athletes. And if you're a heavyweight calisthenics athlete or a heavyweight athlete in general, don't worry about putting on weight, because if you gain 10 pounds, then all you need to do is just get 10 pounds stronger, as if it's really just that cut and dry. Now, when you already have a frame that's, say, 6 feet tall and you're 200 pounds, getting 10 pounds stronger is a lot easier said than done. Now, if you were 5'7" and 155 pounds and you put on 10 pounds, getting 10 pounds stronger is a lot easier than getting 10 pounds stronger when you're already what you would consider somebody who's massive for the movement practice. Another thing about this getting 10 pounds stronger aspect, or this 10 pounds stronger statement, is it really just depends on where those 10 pounds went anyways. Like I mentioned previously, that when I was in my strength phase, I was doing a lot of heavy weighted leg movements. And one of my goals during the time was to actually increase my vertical leap, which I was doing a lot of plyometrics as well. And I did improve my vertical leap by probably about 5 inches or so. At the end of that strength cycle, I think I was doing like a 50 or 51 inch box jump, which, maybe might not be super impressive for you, but at 40 years old, it's pretty impressive. And, in the past, I've been able to do something like a 58-inch box jump. But one of the things that comes along with age is that our fast twitch muscle fibers are the first to go. That's actually one of the main reasons why it's extremely important to keep training for explosiveness and to keep training your fast twitch muscle fibers as you get older. But like I was saying, I got a lot of strength gains from doing weighted movements, especially those leg movements. The power cleans, I think I got up to like 20 245 pound clean, which was a PR for me. For the front squat, I think I got up to like a 275-pound front squat. But along with all these strength gains came weight gain. So I put on like 15 to 20 pounds, and 75 to 80% of that weight was all in my lower body. I'm somebody who already has a genetic propensity to gain weight in the lower body. That's where I know I'm just somebody who has big legs, and especially when it comes down to building muscle, my legs can build a lot of muscle and build a lot of muscle really fast. That's probably a good thing when it comes down to sports, but it's not the best thing when it comes down to calisthenics, and it's not the best thing when it comes down to running. My bread and butter is calisthenics. My second love is running. One of the things that I noticed when it came down to training planche, or when it came down to even doing front levers, well, I pretty much lost the front lever during the time when I was going through all that strength work. I wasn't really working on the front lever, and I also just had heavier legs, so it just made that movement just kind of disappear. Now, when it came down to the planche, I actually was making some progress with the planche, but another thing is just the progress was just coming a lot slower, just because I was gaining so much weight over that period of time. And for me, I'm looking to master a movement, not just make small progress. That's just kind of my mentality. So when it comes down to which one is more important for me, I'm going to choose the calisthenics movement, the goal that is current in my mind. Now, this also affected me when it came to down to my running as well. Like I said, running is my second love. And running with big legs makes running pretty much a nightmare, to be completely honest with you. It makes you get winded faster. You know, you're running with 15 to 20 pounds extra weight on you. So you're basically like running around with a weight vest on. Makes your legs feel like sledgehammers. It's just not a fun thing to do. And, you know, at the end of 2024, maybe the beginning of 2025, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I can remember doing a 10-mile run on New Year's Day, or maybe it was like December 31st. And I ran that at a 7-minute and 45-minute per mile pace. Now, recently I've been getting back into running, and I've actually built up my capacity to the point where I can actually run 10 miles, which is great, but my pace is about a minute slower. So I've been running those 10-mile runs at about an 8-minute and 55-second pace, which is not terrible. And at the end of the day, I'm not a competitive runner. I'm not really somebody who's trying to go out and really compete in a half marathon or compete in a full marathon. So it's really not that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, who doesn't want to run their runs at a faster and easier pace? Who doesn't want to be faster? Of course, we all want to be faster. We all want to perform better. And being lighter is not just going to benefit us when it comes down to calisthenics, not just from the calisthenics perspective, not just from a functionality perspective, but it's also from a health perspective as well. So you have to ask yourself this question: how many old people do you see that are, 200 pounds plus? Not that many. You don't really see that many big old people. For the most part, when people start to age, they start to put more value into being lighter and being leaner. This is all kind of a part of having more of a minimalistic approach when it comes down to life. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I want to get ahead of the curve. Now, granted, I'm not saying that I have to get lighter at this age. I'm only 40 years old. I'm going to be 41 years old next month. But at the end of the day, why not get a head start and start being healthier sooner? And at the end of the day, I've actually noticed a big shift in my energy levels from when I was at 205 pounds to now where I'm at about 193, 194 pounds. I noticed a huge difference in my energy levels. Another thing that I'll probably warn you guys about is that if you're in your 40s, if you're in your 50s, even if you're in your 30s, everybody's body works differently. I noticed about 5 years ago, or maybe about 5 years ago or so, I remember I had tried to build up as much muscle as possible, and then I had went on about a 15-pound cut. And it was super easy for me to drop that 15 pounds. Like I probably lost that 15 pounds in like 3 months. But now at the age of 40, man, it's been some work to get 12 to 13 pounds off. It's been extremely difficult. So, the weight doesn't come off the way that it used to. So that's just a forewarning. So the more that you gain, even if it's in the name of strength, even if it's in the name of powerlifting, even if it's in the name of whatever sport that you play, the weight that you gain is going to take a lot longer for that weight and a lot more difficult for that. And it's going to be a lot more difficult for that weight to come off as you get older than it was in your 20s or maybe your early to mid 30s. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much all I got for you guys today. If you guys are interested in my hybrid approach to training, if you guys have gotten something from this video, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. Also, if you guys are interested in one-on-one coaching, go ahead and visit my website. That's hybridathlete40.com. Again, that's hybridathlete40.com. I have programs on there. You guys can do a consultation with me and also see if you guys qualify for online coaching. But anyways, guys, I hope everybody's having a great day out there. I'll holler at you guys later. Peace.